You're listening to Season 2 of the Womenpreneur Asia podcast, and I'm your host, Krista Goon. Through Womenpreneur Asia, I hope to bring you stories of inspiring yet down-to-earth women in business across Malaysia and Asia. This episode is sponsored by Redbox Studio. In this episode, I'm talking to Malaysian entrepreneur Shamala Hinrichsen. Shamala is the founder of Hanai, a social enterprise that empowers women to take charge of their health. Hanai Jiwa Ibu is her first product targeted at rural Malaysia. Jiwa Ibu, which means mother soul, provides women with access to information about maternal, mental health, and domestic violence, in addition to a complete doctor's directory and information on COVID-19. Shamala's other passions include writing. She has published a collection of short stories and had her work appeared in anthologies, besides a series of illustrated children's books. She also founded and advises on a safe space project in Malaysia for women to empower each other. And on top of that, Shamala is the co-host of a podcast to inspire women with other successful women's stories at She's a Boss podcast. Let's get into Shamala's story. Welcome to the Womenpreneur Asia podcast, Shamala.
Hello, Krista. Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Shamala, where are you located physically today?
At the moment, for the Ipoh girl, that's me. This morning, I'm located in the north of Germany in a little town called Bielefeld, which is my husband's hometown. So that's where I'm speaking to you from.
Okay. So before we get started into talking about your business and what you do, I would like to ask this question. Who is Shamala?
Shamala is a little Ipoh girl who went to convent school and made all those connections, went to USM, and then eventually set out to work in a couple of things in research, in government, in corporate, and finally doing what I do today, which I'm sure I'll get to talking about a little bit more. But more of all, I am a mother of 2 young boys, and I'm also a sister to a brother and another sister. I'm a cousin, I'm a friend. I'm also a children's book writer, an author, this and that. So a number of many things, but most of all, Shamala loves Malaysian food.
We have to say that, right, on the podcast. Yes.
Absolutely.
And you also have a podcast.
That's true, although I have to confess that it's been a little bit slow for a while now. I run it together with Becky Bowie, who originated the idea, and she's the founder of that podcast. And it's called She's a Boss, and it's a platform for women who lead whatever that they lead in their lives to have airtime to talk about how they got there and what they do. Yeah.
So Shamala, now that you told us who you are, let's talk about how you got to where you are now in your business.
It's a bit of a journey and a bit of a surprise that I would end up starting a business, because it's sort of the furthest thing I would have seen in my life, because I was very comfortable doing what I did. I was very comfortable, at that time when it's sort of, I'll just talk a little bit about the time period when this happened. I was very comfortable working for the government of Luxembourg. And then I had my second son, and we had the opportunity to do a 4-month sabbatical. And we traversed north to south of India on a volunteer project, both my husband and I, and the 6-month-old baby and our 3.5-year-old at that time. Volunteering
That's
for one of
courageous.
It is, and I don't know, maybe it was all my maternal hormones. I wasn't seeing straight or whatever it was, but it ended up being a life-changing experience on a positive way. So we worked for one of the UN research agencies, and I was mapping the rural healthcare landscape of India. My husband was doing business plans, value chain addition. And as we walked India and went all the way, I began to meet a lot of women who I saw, I think up to 80% of them would never see a doctor in their entire lifetime. And 100% of the women I met at least had mobile phones. And so that began to click in my head. And I think sort of 3 months into that journey, I just knew that I couldn't do what I had been doing every day. And I had to join a revolution, a movement that was trying to do this, because I knew that the data will show that it's not the same. That it is the same across the globe when it comes to rural women. We are very often marginalizing them. We're not creating products that take care of them. We're not doing anything to reach. That sort of started the journey. I came out of that sabbatical with a complete career change and onto a new learning experience. So later in life, and that started the journey. And I can talk a little bit more into how it went into specific projects, but learning about the fact that a mother in Malaysia had died of hemorrhaging after childbirth completely shocked me. Being a West Malaysian, I was just unaware of things that were occurring in our rural Malaysia and other parts of our country. That's how it started.
So that's how it started for you as the CEO of Hanai.
Mm-hmm. That started the genesis of my company, Hanai. Hanai means, it's a verb that means to care for in Hawaiian. Took a little while to find a name that was not already taken or meant something that could scale and traverse across languages. So that's what Hanai means, to take care of. And at the heart of it, that's what we want to do. We want to take care of. We want to give every child a chance. And in order to do that, for every child to have a chance, you need to give that chance to the mother first, because that's where your life begins, in your mother's womb. And if you're not taken care of in that womb and, up to the first 3 years of your life, your chances of succeeding, being healthy, everything diminishes drastically. So that's sort of the sweet spot that Hanai has found, that Hanai works in.
Okay. Perhaps you can let us know a little bit. What are some of the products or services that Hanai has presently?
Sure. We are still a relatively young company. And what we do is we offer a suite of mobile apps or mobile-enabled services. So we have a product called Jiwa Ibu, which means mother's soul in Malay. And that's specifically targeted to our rural women in Malaysia, and more specifically to the indigenous communities in Sabah and Sarawak. So it started with, I'll just delve a little bit, if I may, Krista. It started with learning that a mother had died in hospital lawas in childbirth, like right after childbirth. She continued to hemorrhage, walking back and forth to the hospital. And eventually she died. And her daughter, Agnes, had decided to talk about this and bring it up for awareness. And that caught my attention. And being a global Malaysian living abroad, that caught my attention and had caught the attention of all the others who had been working on it, on pushing for it. And that started really, but why I want to do work all over the world when I cannot even look at look at my own backyard first. So Jiwa Ibu brings maternal healthcare information, mental healthcare information. All the information is locally relevant. It's in Malay and in English. And we put a bit of effort into the COVID-19 because we launched during COVID-19 last April. And that just sort of works with this community champions model, because if there's anything that we Malaysians are good at, is networking. So it starts with one woman taking charge of a small group of women and spreading it forward. That's one of the products. Also local hospitals and the services that they offer, their opening hours, their contact details. Because I think those of us who live in larger cities, we always know where's the closest hospital. And even in smaller areas, they know what's the closest hospital, but they may not know if there's an eye doctor there or an orthopedic surgeon there, or if you can get your cesarean there, or if you need to, go by boat 6 hours to get your cesarean. That's what we do with Jiwa Ibu. And the second product that is in the making is called Imarisha, and it's targeted at teenage moms and previous sex workers in a part of Kenya. We work with a local organization there, again, with a focus on maternal health, infant nutrition, and mental health, which is what a lot of these teen moms have asked for their state of their mental health and sexual health. These are the two. It's the start, and we're looking at scaling across a few other countries, but all the time holding true to this whole first 3 years of life thing. So encompassing maternal health and infant health.
How did you, okay, I know the part about Jiwa Ibu, right? Which is in Borneo, which is, of course, Malaysian, right? For Malaysians. But how did you get to Kenya? And how did that happen? I know Malaysia and Kenya is like really.
I know it's a very confusing story, but again, it was all very fortuitous that the Malaysia thing happened, because I had built a large, like this last parts of my career in Europe and things. So Africa was still like the closest thing I had done after India. A lot of the pilot work, on the ground surveys were actually done in Africa, in Mozambique and things like that. So I was looking to expand upon that until this story of the mother who died, her name is Kam Agong, reached me one, March of 2019. I was like, what? And then that started the whole Malaysian thing rolling. So in Hanai's business and amongst our team, the Malaysia thing was a little bit more, why are we going there? That was the outlier. But it became the pilot and the big first thing. Yeah. No. With Africa was familiarity, grant access out of Europe.
And of course, your network is around Europe.
Yeah, the connections, correct. The connections, the US, European connections across to reach the work in Africa was just a little bit larger. I would love to do a lot more in Southeast Asia. So I'm just now starting to network and get back into it. Yeah.
I'm sure if someone out there listens to this and maybe
so please
with you,
touch with me.
Get in touch with you, and then you could start the ball rolling for other parts of Asia. Yeah. But what excites you with your work with Hanai and your work with the women and the villages and all that?
Yeah, exactly. I know that when you speak to the group of entrepreneurs at large, like very often all the big successes are like, they raised $2.5 million or they raised $1 million or they hit their first. And as much as, that needs to be there and that has to be a driving factor, it never, until today, it isn't the thing that gets me going. What gets me going is reading an email from our beneficiaries saying that 5 of the women who are part of the cohort no longer prostitute themselves on Sundays because their life has changed completely. This gives me, I feel very emotional about it, because this tells me that, okay, every single minute of the work we put in, every little bit of blood and toil, this is worth it, because this is what we're wanting to do. At the end of the day, this is what excites me. And at the end of the day, if I wanted to look at the trajectory of my career, I want to go, if I've made the difference in one person's life, if I've made one woman say her child is living because she has interacted with anything to do with Hanai, it will be not just exciting, it's fulfilling, it's everything that I see myself doing, as long as I have the ability and the capacity to do it.
Was this always in you, even when you were doing other work,
Completely. 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 I think I grew up also in a family setting where I always saw everyone volunteering, doing their bits back. Nothing in a big global or fancy stage, but I always saw it around me, even from the time I was a child. And all through my university life and early career onwards. So I always dedicated part of it. I always volunteered on something or rather, like be it traversing Indochina, teaching English on my own with different groups of people, be it helping out with organizations like World Reader to bring books into hands of rural girls. It's just always been there. I've always found myself needing to do that. It was not just something that I fell into. It's just I always felt the need. I need to keep doing this.
Okay. So what does it mean then to be a woman entrepreneur to you? I know what excites you, but what does it mean?
I think it's and for me at this point, it's an encompassing of all the skills and talents that I've built through my life that I didn't even know I was building along the way. And more so being a mother, having become a mother before I became an entrepreneur, I feel it's just an encompassing of my time management skills and my prioritization, my very prioritization is a big thing, or the ability to see opportunity, the ability to also cut losses very quickly, knowing that, when you're fighting with a 3-year-old and you're not going to get anywhere anymore. So knowing when to stop. And then I just it's almost like a business school in the making, just my managing, the children and the household. So this is what being an entrepreneur is to me. It's sort of the complete picture, the entire circle of everything that I've done up to today, and being taught every single day, all the things that I don't know, needing to seek that help when I need to. It's now showing itself. It's like all of a sudden being back again at university.
Did you always have this dream of becoming an entrepreneur?
I would say no, it wasn't there all the time with me. It's not that I didn't see that as at the initial stages, but I began to see it shaping up, knowing that I would reach a point where I wouldn't be able to simply listen to what is being dictated that I need to do. And I'd worked on big projects with big budgets, and it used to shock me, like, how can we have, that amount of money and still manage to screw it up? And so it was there. I think it probably began to form in my head about 10, 15 years, the last 10, 15 years, and, begin to put into shape on, like, if I did this, how would I do it differently? How would I execute it differently? So that's probably where the entrepreneurial part came. I had grown up seeing both my grandmothers were entrepreneurs in their own right, in the way that, one is an entrepreneur in a way that a woman is an entrepreneur of that time, of that age. In an informal way.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, sure.
That would be an interesting story.
Both my grandmothers were widowed very young. Okay, so my paternal grandmother, when I met her, she was already a widow, and all her entrepreneurship that happened before I knew her. But I heard enough stories, like how she did the whole having to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and make tosses and appams and getting that into the shops. And so she made a living with what's the skill that she knew, which was to cook well and to do that and to manage her money. She had 4 sons. So that was a story that I always heard very long, already entrenched in me. And that, and then I saw all these educated men around me with all their cushy jobs and what have you not. But that always stuck with me. This woman who didn't have an education, who still successfully put all of her kids through into schooling and higher education and got them all into the world. Like that drive that the next person's life has to be better than mine, that struck me very, very hard. Like everybody was always doing that next person's life has to be better than mine. And if I need to be, put everything that I have, my entrepreneurial self into it, I'm going to do it. And then I saw it in all. So that's on my paternal side. And everyone else, they always had their jobs, but they always did something else to make the extra part, to make it better. My mother's mother came from India. Like, in Malaysia, we have multiple first generation, second generation, third generation. Like my father's side, everybody had been in Malaysia for a long time. My mother's side, my mom's mom came from India as a young girl, married young and came over. And she lost her husband young. And my grandfather had done well, like no debt, nothing of that sort. But all the same, when children were young, she still needed to. And that I remember because I was already born. My mother is her eldest daughter. And she worked so hard, like she would grind everything to make it from scratch, like all the food that she made. So this is the foodie in me. It's like seeing people make food that was of high quality. Like people went to her because the food was high quality. And I saw her do that. And, step by step, every single brick by brick by brick. And she built that through. And I saw that tenacity, the hard work that needs to go into it. It's not easy at all. You never have an opportunity to say, no, sorry, I don't want to work on Sunday. I'm just going to kick back and laze it out. No such thing. And that really reflected, again, no education, pure genius of mine, being able to manage money, being able to collect, invoice, so to speak. I saw it happening in front of me, and that those were like my first entrepreneurs around me that I saw who were successful from a small scale. And that it hit me that you don't need the 1.5 million infusion from anyone to start things. You can start with what you have.
Yeah. And you can bootstrap it your way.
If you have to bootstrap it all the way until you finish, like whatever, you just do it. Just do it. If you have it in you, you're going to do it. If you have it in you that you're going to finish doing it, you will.
Yeah. So I would also like to ask you a little bit more about when you started Hanai. What were some of the earliest challenges?
Oh my God. Every single thing was a challenge. I'm a scientist by training, so I completely no business background. I'm married to someone who thankfully is more business savvy and surrounded by friends. The one good thing was, so I'll talk a little bit, the good thing was I knew who to go and ask and beg for help and help me around, but everything was a challenge from very basic things on like how to set up a business structure to how to fundraise to, and I had to say like, no, what we need to do is actually get the work on the ground first. How to juggle, how to show up at places when you've got young kids, how to, like hustle my way through to say that I need to get it done. Those were also challenges. I think everything was a challenge, and then finding people to work with, finding people that the team, Hanai team that I have is a phenomenal team of old friends, people that I worked with for a long time.
Well, they could also be very senior people, right? Very senior.
They're senior in their jobs. They've had like a world of experience. When by asking my old boss to work for me, asking my best friends to help me out. So the team of Elizabeth, Patricia, Sanjeev, Brian, they're just like out of the world phenomenal. But some of the high point of challenges was meeting, getting on board, like for instance, a new developer, and about 1.5 months before we were due to launch Jiwa Ibu, he sent a breakup email on a Sunday morning saying, I can't do this. Actually, I've only managed to do this part. All of it that I sent you up to now, which is like the facade part, I cannot finish it. Sorry, goodbye. So I've had that realm of it. Okay, so I've had the breakup email telling me like, this is it, finish, and I've survived it. I'm still here, still standing and still pushing forward. So to anyone else, if you're listening in and you wonder like what are some of the challenges, if it's a challenge that you're feeling, you can be rest assured someone else has gone through it, and you can be rest assured that it was really painful for everyone who had gone through it, but you have to know that you will survive it to see another day.
But since you're talking about Hanai, you have the mobile apps, right? Was that the most difficult thing to get off the ground, or were there other things around it?
No, I don't think. I think mobile apps are, a dime a dozen. Anyone can come up with an app, non-coding, and you can create it. It's a health app, so it has its own set of difficulties. One is the larger challenges in Hanai's delivery is the fact that it's health associated. So the curating, the disseminating into lay language, and then the approval, because you have to work with health ministries. So there's a lot of jumping through hoops for that, getting the connections, getting through the process, and then having that paperwork sit on somebody's desk, and then you have to wait and wonder who's, under whose chair you're going to set a fire so that thing speeds up. So it's more a case of bringing in things that you like, your connections, your networking, getting through the loophole, going through the step-by-step, getting it done correctly. Those are the things that are challenging, because sometimes it's nothing within you can do anymore except wait. It's not anything that's no longer in your hand. It's just a waiting game at times. And it's the same. That's not just to any geography. It's across, since we work in 2 geographies, I can tell you that's the same on the other side also. It's a waiting game, knowing who's approval to get, and how many other approval steps to get, and how many tea parties to throw, and things like that. So I would say that is the more of the challenge than the actual building of something, because that you have developers, you have people, that everyone around you is smart enough and smarter than you to do it.
Okay. So if Shamala now could give Shamala then advice, what would you have done differently?
Oh God, like the people that you're going to work with to get the product done. Like, if ever the Shamala then will tell the Shamala then. Shamala now will tell the Shamala then.
Yeah.
If there's a warning signal, it's a warning. It's a fire. Like, get out of there immediately. Put out the fire. Just destroy the building, bring it down to the ground. The moment, so many things are gut feelings, and if it triggers something, you must act on it immediately. So Shamala now knows that Shamala then sensed all of those things, but chose to just keep the ball rolling, like, no way, this cannot be, and just keep rolling. So a certain naivete that is now lost altogether. Like, it's not that I don't trust, but every bit of trust has got like an insurance around it. So yeah, the whole go strong with the gut feeling thing, and definitely cut your losses more quicker than you should.
Then how about if there's someone who comes along and says, Shamala, I would really want to start a business like yours. What kind of advice would you give a person who aims to be like you?
Absolutely. I mean, not that someone comes up to me every day and says, I want to start a business like you. That I see myself in that position, but I do speak to a lot of people who want to start things, and we do go through. And one of the big things, the first thing I ask is, you need to question yourself. If you're not doing this, what are you going to be doing? Because I personally believe that you need to get into it knowing that this is it, this is what you want to do, you're going to push, so that you won't every day second guess yourself and say, I'm not going to do this anymore because it's a little bit difficult, I'm going to go do something else. So that's already number one. Know that this is it, you're going to push it, you're going to go through, you're going to see through to the end. Because I don't think running a business is for somebody who wants to have it easy or to want to take a shortcut or to have a quick escape. That's not it at all. Like, you've got to see through. You have to have that tenacity in you. Number two, to ask yourself is, will you be willing to admit that you've been wrong and that you need to do something different, and to know that you're not the person who knows the best about this. This is very important, because every single day I'm the dumbest person at something. So like, are you ready? Not every day. Do you have that kind of humility every single day to know that, you're going to make those mistakes? And the third is, are you willing to then listen to some other people who are going to talk to you and tell you what you should be doing? Because I think that's the only way. For me, being in the business is also part of my personal growth. And I've had the privilege of having so many amazing mentors or people who've spoken to me and say, like, okay, you're running the business. How do you make your family work with you and the business? Because that's also important to me, my family. So these are the sort of the big things I would bring up to anyone who wants to talk to me about how to start a business, that they want to start a business. Like, are you willing to admit, are you willing to see it through to the long run? Are you willing to admit that you won't know everything? And are you willing to then listen and learn?
You brought up a very interesting topic of mentors. And I'd like to delve into that too. How important have mentors been in your life, and particularly now in your business? And of course, if you can name names, who are they, if you could?
Sure, of course. And I'm going to say this first, with mentors and systems that set up mentors for you, you also have to be cautious, because I think if you have too many all at the same time, they could be contradicting bits of information, and that will just lead you running left and right. And very often your mentors are there to sort of listen and just a slight nudge. They cannot be there to like push you in a totally different direction either. I don't think that's what mentors are supposed to do. So, but I've heard people, other entrepreneurs who've run left and right with their mentors, and I've always said, okay, I think you've too many mentors to begin with, and they're all like, you need to have mentors for maybe specific things that speak to that mentor. If they are very good with finances, speak to them about finances. If they're very good with connections, speak to them about connections. So be very careful about that. So that's the caveat with mentors. Be careful across the spread. And I have been so lucky. I've had mentors in like every single every single category of the business. Like, these are people that on days, like even last week, and I have my head on the table, like ready to cry. But I know that there's a phone I can pick up and say, I'm about to give up. I can't do this anymore. So Hedda Paulson Moller is a business angel and almost serial entrepreneur, started and helped, and very, very with a gender lens, impact investing, and a good friend. She's someone that she's the first person I called when I said, I want to start working in social impact and to know how to go about this. She's the first person I called, and I continue to talk to her and lead it along the way with it. Narissa Naidu, she just started her own fintech enterprise. She's a South African who now sits in the US. And she always tells me, like, one of the best things she said to me recently when we were talking, she's like, okay, fine, there are a lot of people who can do things from scratch. Like, fine, they know how to make kaya from scratch. Good for them. But are they also making kaya from scratch and running a business and taking care of their kids? So she put me in perspective. So sometimes your mentors are not there specifically for what's the next step or way to fling-flong yourself in your business, but just in life and how you are as that CEO. Are you in your CEO mindset or not? Are you just trying to be CEO and also a kaya expert? So you cannot be both. It's hard to be both. Indra Nooyi, the previous CEO of Pepsi, who I have a lot of admiration for, she said you cannot have the both.
you cannot have everything at the same time.
You cannot have everything at the same time. Someday something will slip. Someday you will forget to put the lunchbox into your kid's bag. There will be that day when you forget to show up for a meeting because you were late picking up your kids. So this is all going to happen to you, and it's not the end of the world. So I have mentors who help set me in that type of thing. And I have mentors from the medical sector who are very, very relevant and very, very important because they also know how it is. These are old friends, like my old friend Rina, who's also a USM, by the way, who would talk to me and tell me what's the state of research going on and or in healthcare dissemination going on. So I am really lucky, really, really lucky. I'm surrounded by people who are able to guide and push and prod in many different instances. There is a network of people that I can reach into and lean on and say, I'm not sure what to do here. I'm not sure why I'm being asked for a bribe. How should I go about it? And then people who have geographical expertise would be able to say, okay, that's the way work is done there, or no, forget it, shut it down now. So mentors have been the pillars of Hanai, not just for myself, but the rest of our team as well, right? Like for them to all lean on the different people to talk to, because they bring local expertise sometimes, they bring perspective, absolutely, and they bring honesty.
Since you've had your mentors, do people approach you to be their mentor? Yeah.
Yes, of course. And within my limitations, of course, and I also am then very honest, like what I'm able to provide. I think it's such a huge responsibility as well, like especially if it's someone younger starting up. You want to play this, you want to be in this space as a mentor where you are encouraging, but yet also very realistic, right? Like you don't want to just mentor and tell them, yes, you can do anything and everything you like. So within my limitations of the knowledge of the sector or things like that, we do take on interns at Hanai. So we've been very, very lucky. And that's where probably the biggest part of mentoring happens. We've always had young university students about to enter university. We have a Malaysian law student who's our intern at the moment, and she's so clever. We've had we've been so lucky to have such amazing interns up to now. A Mexican intern, a German one. So that's probably the place that we also see ourselves doing the most benefit to society in that sense, like to start them young, to know what are all the pitfalls or the things you can gain from it, and yet they're bringing so much excitement and like I can do anything.
Yeah, so for those who are listening, thinking, how can I get mentored by Shamala? Best place to try is try and be an intern at Hanai and
Be an intern at Hanai.
Yeah, and
That's
get
true.
to work with her and her team, right?
I think working with my team, me is one thing, but my team's so clever. Like I love working with them because they're so smart. So every conversation I have with them, I'm like, oh my God, like thank God for them. So yeah, I think that's the privilege of being an intern at Hanai. But other than that, always anyone is welcome to drop an email or find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, any of the things. I do talk to a lot of people. And
yeah,
I love to learn.
So now I want to know a little bit more about the Ipoh girl.
Oh.
What was growing up in Ipoh like for you? And I know you have you still have very fond memories of Malaysia and of course Ipoh. And as we talked before this of Chi Xiong Fan.
Please, no Chi Xiong Fan in the world comes close to Chi Xiong Fan from Ipoh. And trust me, I've eaten Chi Xiong Fan across the world.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about those growing up years in Ipoh. What was it like for you?
Sure. It was amazing. Ipoh is a great town. I know a lot of people call it the retirees town or the millionaires town in Malaysia because it's just easygoing and yet everything is there. Like
very laid back, right?
Well, it is laid back, and it is also in that laid back town. You get towns that are laid back and yet like very wanting, whereas Ipoh is not. It just really has everything. It has its top schools, it has its top hospitals, it has its top everything. So as you can see, I could be a spokesperson for Ipoh.
Yes, out there in Germany.
Exactly. Go travel. And then Ipoh has had such a revival in the last 10, 15 years. Like, everything has turned very touristy and you begin to see tourists because that was never the case when I was growing up there. Like it was just such a small, it's not small, but such a lazy town that you would never see any tourists and things like that. Nobody ever came to Ipoh on a holiday. I went to the convent school and there I had exceptional teachers, exceptional friends that I'm still friends with until today. That network is still among the strongest networks that I have, to be honest. Like, yes, the university network's strong, but my convent Ipoh friends are still the friends that I'm still chatting with and still talking to and still seeing what everybody is doing. And it's also a diaspora that's scattered across the world now. So you can find one of us anywhere in the world, be it in, here in the north of Germany, anywhere in the US. Like one of the highlights for me was meeting like a very good friend from from like Form 1 in San Francisco, and she had made some homemade food and brought it to me. So it was just
I think that's the key thing with Malaysians, right? Like we meet another Malaysian and we're like, our food. We must cook and bring something, or must buy something, or must start a conversation about where you can buy what. That's very Malaysian. But sort of then to put it out, like a lot of my family also lived in Ipoh, so there was a strong family connection. Like there was always something that's very alien living in Germany or in the Western world, which is like, on Saturday at 2:00, suddenly like an entire car full of people will arrive and then they're actually going to stay the weekend, but they never call and told you that they're coming. They just come and then you open the door and everybody, then you start making your fried pisang goreng and cooking and things like that. And it was just so normal to have. And I grew up with that. Like always had cousins and uncles and aunties just popping by every time. So I assume you had a big family?
I do. It's not, I myself only have a brother and my sister, but somehow people used to wonder whether my parents had like 6 or 7 children because of my cousins. So,
but all of you lived in Ipoh? I mean, like,
yeah, we all lived, mostly lived in Ipoh and otherwise near enough to Ipoh that they could show up very often. So, because of that, yeah, I had grown up with that extended family feeling all the time. And it was something that I didn't know how much I missed until I had gone away to live on my own or had then my now nuclear family, by itself. How much I missed is people just showing up and then staying for 3 days without going back.
How often do you go back to Malaysia or come back to Malaysia, I should say?
Sure. So let's talk about the pre-COVID era. Pre-COVID era, I am one of those gung-ho Malaysians, okay? Like I used to come back 2 times a year at least. And the best years, especially after having had the kids, I think I would come back like sometimes up to 3 times in the year. And prior to that, at least once a year. So, and that helped me to keep the connections. And I would do this. I'm going to be in Bangsa village or whatever, a pub in Bangsa or a restaurant La Makan somewhere in Bangsa from this time to this time, and it's open, and have anyone and everyone pop in and get together. So I miss it a lot.
Well,
my parents still live in Ipoh, so it's usually I'm one of those also who tries to fly direct to Singapore and take this Firefly flight from Singapore to Ipoh. Ipoh has an airport, okay? Very small.
Thank you for letting me know. But I'm sure, when you come back to Malaysia, there's so many friends and family members to meet. So your time in Malaysia is also very productive.
Absolutely. There's no lazing.
But do you also come back to do Hanai work?
Absolutely. So at least from the start of from August of 2019, that's when the Hanai work sort of started in Borneo. That started my sort of research on the ground research. So it was really fun. It was a combination then of family and friends and everything else, and meeting a lot of new Malaysians that I didn't know, which is very rare, because when you meet Malaysians outside the country, you for sure know them or someone knows someone. It's crazy, right? But it was one of those things where we went off to a little holiday destination in Sabah, and then from there I was on these small airplanes flying all over into Sarawak, and I had the highlight of getting into a small airplane in Lawas, and then the lady told me, "You just stand up and weigh yourself together with your bag," and I was like, "Wow, that's really insulting." Okay, but. And then just pay for the plane ticket in cash, right? And then I stood there with my bag, and then I had shared that airplane with some fighting chickens and me. So there were all these things. And
what an adventure!
I know, but it was all okay because that morning I had eaten mee kolok, mee kolok there, that sort of started it, then getting onto this, really knowing the expanse of the country, knowing the expanse of the land, seeing what local hospitals look like there, and being connected through these powerful Malaysian connections that said, okay, you make this meeting, you go and see this MP in that town, just fly there and they will see you, they will have coffee with you. And it worked, it really did. Every single person I was supposed to meet, all were there, all together, since come, let's talk, what do you want to do? So that started it. And then I came back again and went straight to East Malaysia to also do a second round of it, meeting 50 local women to do focus group discussions, meeting with doctors on the ground. And all that started, meeting with MPs in government. So the work thing started. And then COVID hit, and I haven't been back again since. I haven't been back in Malaysia, I think, in 18 months now, which is sort of the longest period I've been away from the country.
And while you are in Germany, how is that work carried out in Borneo? Do you have people on the ground?
Sure, it's still very much dependent on this type of connections. So what we're doing now, we're speaking over video and getting it done on the ground rollout. It's a bit slower than what I would like it to be, but I think all of us across the globe are working with different conditions now than we're used to. So it's learning to suck it up and move on with it.
Yeah. And what's in the future for Hanai?
Sure. I think at the end of it, this is the sort of the woo-ha-ha-ha. I think we want to be in that position to have given every woman the ability to make decisions on her own health. If you're not educated enough, or even if you're educated, your healthcare outcomes, your healthcare, the needs of your healthcare, how it's going to be managed, is always dictated to you. Someone always tells you, and you're completely then in this position of, okay, I need to trust what's going on here and go with it. And that's okay for those of us who know how to read and write and do what we need to do, or go seek a second opinion when needed. But that's not the case for many. A large part of the world is actually still rural and not meeting even a healthcare professional, never knowing what to do in an emergency, never knowing that it is an emergency. I need to do something here. And Hanai wants to be in that place, that specific place that is there to tell you that you now have a tool to help you make a decision on whether you're in trouble or not, what you want to do next about this, whether you should be getting help, who you should get your help from. So we want to be able to influence healthcare outcomes across the globe, especially in the rural settings, to the vulnerable population. So we've sort of put ourselves into that whole developing Asia, Africa, and eventually Latin America. So we're not looking at the developed Western world as much as it's wanting in many parts of it. This is where we see ourselves. That's the future. We're just at the start of it. There's so much to do. There's so many. It's one of those things where it doesn't matter if 30 people are doing the same thing because there are enough people to serve. There's just so much to do. It doesn't mean that today, because if I enter, for instance, Burkina Faso tomorrow and find out that, there's another one doing that, guess what? It's okay, because you will all need to hit as many. We all need to work together to grab as many people as possible. We need to be able to influence and enable as many people as possible, and go for the women, because if you manage to get the woman in the household, you definitely manage to get the whole family, the whole community.
Yeah. Wow. That's really good, because I can see impacting a lot more women in the rural parts of the world. So now I want to switch up to get a little bit more personal with Shamala. Okay, so Shamala, what are you no longer afraid of?
I'm no longer afraid of the unknown. I think for a long time, as much as, I would be the person who would bungee jump or go on this and that. But I always would have this fear of the unknown. And I'm able to answer this very honestly because I see it in my son. My son is 7. And every time it's a new occasion, a new play date, a new environment, and he travels as much as we do. So he has a certain nervousness about him. And when I saw that in him, I realized that's me. That's completely me. In every scenario, when I enter a new room, a new meeting, that's me. I actually have this, what am I going to do here? Who am I going to talk to? Nobody talks to me. And, every single door, every single airplane I jump on, every single thing, there's always this, it used to be there that, what will this unknown do? Will I go and hide in my room and just sleep under the covers so that I don't have to face it at all? And I think now that fear is gone, because it's sort of if you show up, as long as you show up, the chances of something great happening from there is going to be so high already. So just show up to your unknown, show up with all of you. So in my case, showing up into my unknown with all of me, because and then I'm not scared anymore. As long as I bring myself there, I'm not scared anymore. I've already made it. The hurdle was just getting there in the first place.
I love that answer. I love that answer, because I always ask all my guests this: what are you no longer afraid of? And everyone gives me completely different answers.
I think everyone, because it's also examining what you're actually afraid of, right? When I fine, of course, I'm afraid of losing my relationships with people. I'm afraid of the fact that, one day my family and friends and people around me will die. These are all fears as well, but I cannot control that. But if I show up, I've had a big chance of doing something there. And children, they're I find myself reflecting a lot when I see my kids, what bothers them or what intrigues them. And very often it's a reflection of myself.
Yeah. What's the craziest thing you've ever done?
Sure. Too many. We don't have so much time. But I think the craziest thing I've done up to date, which still goes in my book of crazies, I had met my now husband and dated him for 2 months. And then he went off on a big South American trip. A week into his trip, he dropped me an email saying, I really miss you and I would like to see you again. Will you come and join me in South America? And I bought a plane ticket and flew out to Panama. I was living in Germany at that time. So that's the craziest thing I've done, I think, among the many crazy things. But that sort of sets the benchmark, doesn't it, of the level of crazy. I asked my boss for like a 2-week, I was due a lot of vacation time. So I said, can I have my 2-week vacation like in 2 weeks? And I bought this plane ticket to fly to Panama, and I flew there and met him there. And again, like every single step of the way, it was actually not easy because apparently I didn't realize all these are like, as a Malaysian, you need a visa for Panama and then a visa application. I was like, to hell with it. I'm just going to use my German residency and still land there and make this work. And yeah, and then I still remember arriving at Panama airport, like, I made it. And then now, so we had
what a romantic story.
It is romantic, but it's also so mad. My family were like, are you mad? You just met this guy. What are you doing flying to Panama to see him? Like, like, and like typical Malaysians, like, there's so many people get kidnapped there. You got to be careful. Okay, if like a car comes to kidnap you, push car to them because they're looking for the white man. They're not looking for you. So so that's about the craziest thing I had done until I decided to start a startup with my 2 kids or fly to India with my baby who was still being breastfed and my 3.5-year-old. And
sounds like you have a life of adventure.
It's a lot, but it's also nice to just sit at home on Sunday in your pajamas and just go from day pajama into night pajama. That's sort of like aspirational.
I also know that you are a laughter yoga instructor.
Isn't it? Like,
yeah. God. And how did that come about?
Yeah, it's a bit mad, but I do practice yoga in general. It has been one of those things that I particularly enjoy and I subscribe to. And it started because I had gotten to know about this concept of laughter yoga. I think it's about 12 years ago or something. And I was like, what's that? And I didn't know it from my normal yoga practice that it existed, but it made so much sense both scientifically, medically, and everything. And so I signed up for a course and got to also attend a laughter yoga session when I was on a visit to New York. And I met all these grumpy New Yorkers who were so happy to sit in a laughter yoga session and laugh it out. I was like, oh my God, like Jekyll and Hyde. But then I decided to do the course. So I think it's laughter yoga trainer. And it's amazing. It's just the usage of laughter in a very, very determined fashion to just get a lot of things out. And people actually hold these sessions to just get it out. Laughter is actually one of those things you can force. Like the instructor can stand there and force it out of you and force the action out of you until you laugh. And then there's a time that you just start laughing and you cannot stop. And so it releases lots of good hormones. And
you didn't have to sweat to get all this good stuff.
You don't need to like get into like a weird tree position and then laugh. None of these things. Just laugh.
Or do some strange asana and
correct. No need to like become a pigeon or a peacock and then start to laugh. You can just laugh. And I think the best is when one of those just lie down on the floor like a baby and put your hands and feet up and then you start to laugh. Then you have sort of go back into the deep memory of when you're a baby. I mean, babies laugh in this way and they have no sense of humor. So you don't need sense of humor to laugh.
Okay. So does it mean that is one of the most unusual habits of yours? It's not a habit, right? I mean, that's something you do, but do you have an unusual habit?
An unusual habit? There's so many.
There's so many, okay. Well, you're the first one who says there's so many.
Of course, there's so many weird habits. Like you can, my husband and my kids always go like, oh God, like, why are you such a weirdo about this? Or my brother and my sister. I like neatness to the point of obsession. I think in times when so many things around us are chaotic and you cannot control, you can control how your child is supposed to look. I know if I have friends listening in on this, they will know exactly. I used to have my very good friend Sharon who would come to my house and rearrange my cushions just to see whether I'd freak out and completely or push my table like 2 inches aside. So these are all my unusual quirks.
Okay.
Among the many.
Okay. What personal goal are you most focused on right now?
Making myself the best that I can be for now, because it impacts those around me. It's a bit of a long-waited answer, but I'll give you why and what I'm doing about it. But even in terms of, like, I've gotten a little bit more into trying to be meditating and trying to find that being in the now, which is like the most touted about phrase, but it makes a big impact to me at the moment in my life, because I have children, I have my husband, I have my friends and family around. Being in the now is the only way those connections are all staying strong and healthy, because, when I'm having a conversation that I'm having with you, I'm having it with you in the now, and the only thing that I'm doing. So these are parts. This is an example of the thing that I'm doing. It impacts those around me. Me being well, me being healthy, me being in the now impacts those around me immediately. So that's sort of like the biggest personal things I'm working on. I'm also working out a little bit more to get my physical health in shape, so that I can keep eating and
keep eating chee fan when you come back.
When I come back, I don't know how to make chee fan. So it's like not recently, some time ago, I was speaking, there was a conversation my husband was having with someone at Hong Kong, and I jumped in to say, like, do you know how to make chee fan? It was like, wow.
I hear that's quite an art and a skill to make chee fan. Not easy.
No, not easy. I'll stop. I think among the things that, in Malaysia, we are so spoiled, right? Like, nobody's a really good cook, because you just open the door and walk to your corner shop and you eat something there. You get everything there. So my highlight of what I've been able to do at home is my salted duck egg yolk pao. Like, I can make pao. And that's my highlight.
Spoken like a true Ipoh girl.
Exactly.
You have to make your salted egg yolk pao. Okay, final question. What's that one key takeaway that you want our listeners to remember as a result of listening to our very fun conversation?
It has been such a fun conversation, and I think essentially is nothing is there to stop you. So there has to be no statement that you can say that can stop you. Like, if you are going to start a sentence, I cannot do this because, I cannot do this because I come from a small town. I cannot do this because I come from a poor family. I cannot do this because I'm a woman. I cannot do this because I'm a mother. I cannot do this because I'm not smart enough. I cannot do this because that doesn't exist. There's no such thing. So my key takeaway is I was all of those things, okay? Like, and still you are able to do it. You are. If you think you want to write a book, just write the book. You don't say, I cannot write a book because I don't know how to write. You don't know how to write, just type. Like, it doesn't matter. There's always a way around it.
And then that's how Shamala the scientist became Shamala the CEO of Hanai.
Exactly. Because
she wanted to do it.
Just do it. Just be like Nike. Just do it. Let me just use not often used term. Just do it.
And finally, where can people find you online? I know you mentioned just now Facebook and all that, but where's that one place two places that they can find you? Okay,
I'm going to say my email address now.
Okay.
It's Shamala, Shamala @hanai.eu, hanai.eu. Email is very simple. I answer every email.
Okay.
Except if you fall in my spam folder. I am on Facebook. I am on LinkedIn. I am on Twitter. I am on Instagram. I am on Clubhouse.
And where do you find the time, my dear?
No, I am on it, meaning like I stalk other people, but I don't necessarily. But essentially, if you contact me in any which way, you will find me on Facebook Messenger, on LinkedIn Messenger, on Krista, I'm not sure whether you publish my email address and things like that with the podcast. So get in touch. I love to talk to people. I love to hear your stories. And especially this one, to my own personal advantage, is Southeast Asians. I love you. You're just amazing. So I would love to get to know you better and find out what you're doing in your individual countries and look at synergies of what we can bring. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Shamala. I really had fun. I had fun on the pre-call a week or so ago, right? And then now I'm having fun actually getting into your story, understanding you a little bit more, and I wish you all the best in your wonderful journey of helping more and more
Krista.
rural women.
Thanks, Krista. But you have to also acknowledge what an important role you play, people like you play. One, it gives voices to those of us who are trying to do different types of work. It gives us a platform to talk about work, and that's so important. And the other thing is 3 cheers to you for making the time to put together a show like this one, to highlight some of the women who are often overlooked in the globe. The struggle is real. The struggle to find a platform to talk is real. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I hope you have the energy and the motivation to keep going. And please reach out if you ever need anything.
Thank you so much.
I recently watched Raya, the movie, mostly because, the other writer on the movie is Malaysian. And I learned to do this.
Okay. The heart sign.
So take care.
Take care. And I hope to see you again soon. We'll probably have you back on the podcast once, we have more and more people say, hey, we want to get Shamala back. And talk about the next stage of her journey. Yeah, maybe there are more stories. So thank you so much, Shamala. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode. You can find all the links and show notes on our website, womenpreneurasia.com. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. If you're sharing this on your social media, please use the hashtag WomenpreneurAsia. In next week's episode, I'll be speaking to Jacqueline Juanis, who is the founder of Professional Advancements Resources based in Malaysia. Jacqueline is a learning and development specialist who designs programs and trains in the areas of image and professional development and social entrepreneurship. Jacqueline was born and bred in rural Sabah in East Malaysia. Her village didn't have electricity, and as a child, she studied by candlelight. Yet she didn't let her circumstances define her nor stop her from achieving her dreams. She spoke about momentum, using momentum to get out of challenging situations and being smart about the resources she had around her, including gamifying her studying time via candlelight. She has certainly done well for herself. Since 2008, as a corporate trainer, Jacqueline has trained more than 40 organizations and 35,000 participants. And do you know what her greatest fear was when she first started out? She was afraid of public speaking. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Join me next week as we talk to Jacqueline and uncover the story of her growth.